So what you're seeing right now is essentially the first complete version of Sunray. Again, you just saw like a version 1.3 that I was working on that I ultimately abandoned. I came up with this guy. I guess it's time to tell you the story of a person, the original story for the character of Ben that I applied now to my persona was this whole idea of he was not fitting in real world, and he runs into some moon. Originally, they were called man wolves. They were called moon wolves now, and he and everything he knew about moon was again. I don't know how I didn't realize this about Freddy sooner. When the whole idea was everything he knew about werewolves was wrong. Nothing about werewolves were true. None of the stereotypes. And again, that could be applied to furries too. It's like, oh my goodness, none of the stereotypes I know about them are wrong. They don't have identify most of them anyway. 90% don't identify as animal. They're not a problem. They're not bad. They are indeed very helpful, and that's exactly what I had for my persona. The persona who did essentially a man wolf, a human, who, granted, is younger than me. Just first, I should have done this a decade ago. But he wants to be turned into one of them, and lo and behold, the whole idea for the story was that, ironically enough, that one thing they had never tried. The moon didn't affect them. They knew that because they'd been around for years. A silver bullet does no more damage than a normal bullet does, which for them wasn't much. And Wolfsbane is actually called that because they can't get enough of this stuff. It's not poison this stuff. It's like candy. And so it was like everything was wrong, except in one of the first few episodes, they would have actually bit the main character and transformed him, and it would have been shock to everyone because whoops, turns out, and I would have explained later in the show that there was a scientific reason for it, not a medical reason, scientific one. It would have been like this whole mutation thing where a moon wolf's genes were stronger and were able to like mutate humans. But then again, even then, there would have been this whole thing where like the human had to accept it and be willing. Like if the human wasn't willing to accept it, a bite would not work. And that was going to be the whole story with his wife, not wife, girlfriend was going to be like she gets bit later on and look, oh no, what do we do? And everyone's freaking out. And essentially, when she realizes she wants to be with Ben, the main character, no matter what, and accepts that, everything kind of just works out and she becomes the second human transformed. So she transforms into a werewolf too, and again, she has issues. Ironically enough, I'm probably more like her because she has issues accepting at first that this is essentially her new life. So basically, the whole idea of that was carried over here. The difference was instead of being bitten and transformed, Sunray was isekai'd, which isekai is an anime I love. I love that genre of anime, so he was basically going to be human that got isekai'd into an anthropomorphic wolf instead. And I do kind of love that idea, that this is the idea that I've been presented myself. This was the first, when I presented the backstory, it wasn't the backstory I just told you, it was essentially the modified version where Sunray was a human that was transformed into an anthropomorphic wolf. So I was thinking, this kind of works, especially since it adds the isekai element that I love so much. I mean, he's got a sword. The friend added the sword. I was like, oh, I can work with this. I think that when I had this, I really was able to start presenting myself as Sunray, as the persona, as someone who was more confident. His whole idea is that he is strong and that he wants to become one of the greatest knights. And I was just so much thinking about that. That was, I talked about the moment in the park where I wanted to meet the Ronin first. I just think about what would this guy do, and he would absolutely contact the Ronin first to try to get involved in them. And to right now, the second week, the 15th day of being a furry, or at least have a minute on furry and enter in the fandom, this is still the one that is used as my profile picture. It's still my Facebook picture right now. It's still my main design, and this was the one that was made by Konoshibu, a friend of mine. If you go to the Facebook page for Sunray, you'll see that I have the artist credit on there. And this was just sort of like the aha moment for me. That was like, you're not getting out of this. You're this is not something you're gonna do for a few days or a few weeks, and this is something that you're gonna give the full try. And I did still remember one thing I want to talk about is at this point I did actually, despite Finn the Panther's videos to let people find out, I did essentially tell my parents what I was doing. I told my mom first, which I ironically thought was going to go poorly because she's a Trump supporter. I thought she would be conservative about it, be like, what the heck? And I was wrong. Ironically enough, it turned out to be my dad who was more concerned about it, but more concerned were like, again, he went back to, why don't you join a Christian group? Why don't you join a gym group? And I had an answer this time. It's because those aren't the people I want to hang out with. Ironic enough, I want to hang out with the people that I've been talking into the Discord server, the people who were kind of into anthro animals, not in that way, but like anime fans and people who would look at this and say, oh, that's cool, and who ironic enough have, because this was how I was presented for several days in the fandom, for a week in the Discord server, and for several days, and still today, this was my main. Although they have seen the persona I've working on, which brings me to the final part of essentially my first 2 weeks in the furry fandom, and these are a big one.